Welcome to OECD Podcast, where policy meets people.
Hello, I'm Shayne MacLachlan, and today we're talking about social innovation, which is a growing field with real potential to tackle some of society's most persistent challenges while generating positive economic outcomes. So social innovation refers to the design and implementation of new ideas. These can be products, services, or processes that respond to social needs while promoting new forms of social relationships and partnerships, and that's what we're going to hear all about today. So in fact, the OECD has played a key role in advancing the understanding and visibility of social innovation in policymaking. In fact, we first defined social innovation in the year 2000, and our work has been evolving ever since. So to explore this in more detail, I'm joined today by Jeroen Jutte, who is the head of the European Social Fund Coordination Unit at the European Commission. So welcome, Jeroen, to OECD Podcast today. Whereas an Australian and working at the OECD, an international organisation, that's not the way I actually pronounce your name. What's the correct pronunciation?
It's Jeroen Jutte, but as we both work in international organizations, we're used to listening to anything remotely similar to our name, and we look around, look up, and so I think you were pretty close.
Perfect. Well, you can call me Sean, you can call me Shane, you can call me whatever you like, and that's all fine. But that's brilliant. We're here today to talk about social innovation, and in particular the European Social Fund, or the ESF as it's known. To kick things off, maybe you could just describe a little bit about what you do in terms of your role at the European Commission and how indeed it connects to social innovation.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this invitation. I mean, it's really great to be with you, and also on an issue that's of such significance. We talk every day about innovation and the great IT companies of this world and how they're changing the world. But we rarely do so on the field of social innovation. And there's no reason why. We cannot change things, improve things, make them better, make them nicer, make them more efficient in the field of our social policies. We spend a huge amount of budget, all our countries, all OECD countries, but in particular in Europe, in Australia, New Zealand, as a very significant part of GDP. So it's really essential we do this right. Now, my role is as I'm a head of unit in the European Commission, responsible for the coordination of the European Social Fund. We also have geographical units. They work with member states to implement the European Social Fund, but basically my unit gives them direction. Tries to say, okay, we have policy. How do you translate that into concrete action, in concrete projects? Now, to give you an order of magnitude, we aim in our programming period, we cover 7 years periods, to support 149 million people in Europe this period. Every individual out of those has a family, has friends, is impacted. So you see, it's really massive. And so social innovation, doing things better, it's hugely important, and we try to steer that forward.
Absolutely. 149 million people in Europe is rather impressive. It's kind of the population of France times 2. So just to give people an idea of that scale. But indeed, the OECD has developed this 3S framework, which is starting, scaling, and sustaining social innovation. We actually just brought out a report last week on that. But the report highlights the importance of supporting social innovation through the whole life cycle. So from initial experimentation to long-term sustainability. How does the ESF, the European Social Fund Plus framework, support these different stages as well?
We really, in practice, follow the OECD's 3S framework. And what helps us therein is that our periods of support, our programming period, we call this, are periods of 7 years. So the idea behind this is that you have structural problems. You have, areas with poverty, with social exclusion, and these are not resolved by throwing money at it for 1 or 2 years. These are resolved by starting, testing, doing better, using real-time data to see how you're performing, and then you progress. And maybe something is already really acquired in one country, but can be a tremendous innovation in another. And again, to transmit that knowledge, to to share that, to have a mutual learning process. This takes time. And that's why 7 years is a great period to actually support this whole chain of steps you have to undertake to go from the early stage initiatives to pilot projects and move forward with that. And we do so with the shared management programs, so shared management between the member states and the European Commission, and also local stakeholders. That, because we know social innovation is often really emerging at the local level, to move forward with that. To give you again an idea, the European Social Fund is 142 billion euro, both European money and national. 2 billion out of that is specifically targeting social innovation, to have this testing, this piloting, this expanding, and then hopefully when things are successful, we mainstream it in the remainder of the funding. That's really the logic behind it.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, that's very impressive to see 2 billion going on social innovation as part of that fund. And I think that sustaining successful pilots is probably one of the biggest challenges. I'm not sure whether you agree, but I'm just wondering about the strategies that you're employing, that you're using to support the upscaling of social innovations across regions and countries, and whether you might have some of the, some examples in mind of this innovation. You spoke about mutual learning, but it'd be good to hear about those scaling aspects, if possible.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's one of the toughest challenges, and we see some successes, but you see a lot of failures as well. And one of the things is simply that, what can work in one country often doesn't work in another. For a variety of reasons. It can be cultural, administrative, institutional setup, or what have you. So what we did is we created a specific initiative, and we put a dedicated budget there, roughly 200 million, and we organize pilots through that. But these pilots are multi-country, so countries must together test a concept that has already proven its chances of success. And that gives us a broader basis, a multi-country basis, and we combine that with something we call communities of practice. In essence, it's bringing people from every country together, people that are specialists in this, that have their feet in the mud, so to speak, and sometimes they say, "Wow, this can work in Madrid. I'm from Madrid. This can work in our situation," and of course sometimes not. And this is how we link via these experts that are also working on ESF in their countries. We link these social innovations, and it's a bit like pick and choose. You try to get people that have the ability to take these good projects, the ideas, adapt it to the local situation, and then also with European co-financing, we can roll this out. And a great example is something we call ALMA, and we have all these acronyms in Europe, and nobody knows what they mean, but essentially this is about social inclusion pathways for young people that are not in education, not in training, not in a job, and so we bring them then also to other countries to have a new vision on the world, to really broaden their horizon and to see that things can be different. And we see in practice that is highly motivating for these young people. They tend to be in very difficult situations at the start, and it's a life-changing experience. And this we're rolling now out throughout Europe. We put a dedicated budget, and it's an amazing success. We have now 670 organizations involved in all member states, and this is going to go further in the future. We're taking this further, and obviously, you see the logic that especially amongst young people, you want to really have a system where nobody is left behind, and this is what we try to achieve.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Yeah.
And let me actually say something more, because I'm forgetting a very important thing, and maybe we can talk about this more, Sean. But we have, also to help people, we have actually a database, and everybody can just Google now. You go to Google and you say social innovation match, and that's where we present a map of social innovation projects. So that's also very exciting when you work in the field.
So here, this social innovation match, is this what's called the SIM database, in fact.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So another acronym.
Indeed, it's one of these terrible acronyms we use, and I'm always a fan of just giving the whole name because the name is so telling. It's to match up your needs with what is already being tested, and maybe you find some really great ideas there.
Absolutely, yeah. And I was comforted to hear you talking about young people. I think, often being left behind, as you said, and these efforts to make sure that we're not leaving young people behind. But maybe you could just expand a little bit on the SIM database, this matching mechanism, and indeed how our listeners on OECD Podcast might be able to get involved or benefit from this mechanism.
Yeah, so this social innovation match, it's on our website. It's really easy to navigate. So we work with the stakeholders to really make this user friendly. You can filter by policy theme the projects, or by target group you can filter it, or by country, and you can reach out directly to project promoters. So it's really easy to connect, and if you see a good idea, to just almost like I say, pick up the phone, right? Potentially there's a language issue, but still. Otherwise, send an email. And what is especially exciting, I think, is that you can actually upload also your own initiatives. And we have a look at that. We do some filtering, of course. So you cannot just upload anything. But we see that this is used by people that are committed, and so the filtering process is really much easier than it sounds, because you have here a bunch of really dedicated professionals, really motivated, and that's really wonderful to see. And like we all know, it's wonderful to see projects when you visit them. It is so incredibly motivating, and we see this really reflected in the social innovation match database.
Perfect. Thanks so much for describing that. I think, we'll just look ahead a little bit at this point. How do you see the role of social innovation evolving in the EU, but beyond the EU as well?
Beyond the EU, I don't dare say. So let me focus for a moment in this very particular international environment on the EU itself. Well, I think there are a number of factors here. Of course, as I said, we have this longer programming period, which basically assures that we have funding till 2030. Right? So our horizon is basically 2030 in the current. So we are moving forward with this planning where we have really had the 3S approach from the start till the finish, and to roll this out. And we are fairly at the start of the period. So it also means that, almost halfway, but you always have a bit of a slow start before you reach cruising speed. So we really have really exciting developments ahead of us, and we are really very actively working with member states in these communities of practice to bring the professionals together to test more and to really roll out things more broadly. But if you look also strategically, especially if you place it in the context of the European Union. In the European Union, what you see is that the demographic is such that we're losing 1 million people in our labor market each year because of demographic trends. Yeah? So 1 million fewer workers. By 2040, the labor market is 7% smaller. So what do you want to do? You want to use your full potential. You want to leave nobody behind. I mentioned the young. This is obviously the most important group. Young women, young men, you don't want to leave them behind. You want them to live a productive life. Also, people are happier when they live a productive life. So this is really our ambition, to use the full potential of Europe, of European citizens, to the benefit of our continent and to the benefit of all the individuals that are directly impacted by the support that the European Social Fund provides.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's quite a shocking statistic, 1 million fewer workers in the EU per year. And I mean, that does highlight, as we kind of move on to our final question, but some of these challenges, these transitions we're facing. Obviously here we're talking about demographics, but there's also aging populations on the other side. There's the digital transition. There's obviously climate change. Today in Europe, we're seeing an incredible heat wave in Paris. It's 35 plus. It's been that way for 3 days.
Yeah.
But indeed, it's there's a lot of transitions that we're dealing with that present huge challenges, both in and on the continent, but globally. So where do you see the greatest potential for social innovation to make a difference, and as you say, get the full potential of what we can offer to societies and to the economy?
I really think that it's extremely diverse, Sean. It's really in ranging from, let's say, social innovation pathways for groups that are really left behind, and they can be diverse. You can think of Gothenburg, where there's a big migrant community. You can think of Romania, where there's a big Roma community. There are very different issues. You can think of big urban areas like Paris, where you have many young that feel lost and today, and that need to somehow sometimes get direction and help in getting direction, and where the Alma initiative that I mentioned earlier is a great thing. But you can also think about, for example, people that have to re-enter the labor market. How can you best get in touch with women that want to work, that are maybe from a part of society where this is not so common? How can you best help them, train them? And we need to test different ways. Sometimes it's not the old, in fact, in general, it's not the old class system. It's a mix, maybe a bit online, a bit in the evening, in person, often informal environments. And so these things are need to be tested also, and that's exactly what we try to do. Also using real-time results, having often parallel paths in projects to say, okay, you do it the old-fashioned way, you do it the new way. You try to reach out via leaflets in maybe a shopping center, but you also reach out via social media, Instagram, and such. And so you must find ways to also be part of society the way it's evolved, and social media, let's face it, is a big part of that. So we must adjust also in social policy and employment policy and all those dimensions that in the end make society work.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thanks so much. I think Jeroen, or Jeroen, if I dare to try to pronounce your name correctly. What you've said today does truly show that social innovation is an important factor in realizing our full potential for societies. I mean, it's empowering local actors. It provides financial tools. Obviously, the ESF is massive, and it's supporting as well ecosystems that can help us, I guess, bridge the public and private sectors so that we can see some of this impact on the ground that you've described. So thanks so much for today, for taking time this morning. And to our listeners, if you want to learn more on this topic, you can download our new OECD report that just came out a week ago, starting, scaling and sustaining social innovation, on our website. Go and Google it, Bing it, whatever you want to do. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
I'm Shayne MacLachlan, and this has been an OECD podcast. Thanks.
To listen to other OECD podcasts, find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and SoundCloud.com/OECD.